Google wants 200, baby.
You ready to get back to the trading action?
You aim, you shoot, and make money.
It's going to be a great day. You guys know where you're at.
Okay, everyone, welcome everybody. Why am I so small? Strange. Oh well. Welcome. Mitch is going to be away today. It's going to be me and our buddy Steve is going to come over to talk. And what a day it is. If we've been looking at NVIDIA at all, you can see a massive drop down there in NVIDIA. So it might be some big news for the semiconductors as a whole. I think it's going to be an interesting place to kind of spend our time and a little bit of focus on and everything that's going to happen from that. So we're going to pop in here. We're just going to get started, take a quick look at what happened with NVIDIA, the news, and kind of the effect that that's having currently on the market. So NVIDIA is down already in the pre-market 7%, which as one of the largest companies in the world is not ideal. Some sort of tariff news that they're not allowed to sell certain chips, the Blackwell chips, to China for cybersecurity and AI type reasons. So just another escalation in the trade war and the tariff war. So that's going to bring that down, and that's going to cause a whole bunch of turmoil with the overall markets, which are gapping down pretty much exclusively with that news, right? So so we're getting a pop down there as well when it comes to that. That's pulling down the rest of the market. Everything else seems to be holding on okay. Like if we look at the S&P 500, it's gapping down a little bit, but not nearly as much. Take a look at gold. Gold is popping into new all-time highs again. So as the trade war escalates, this is one of those things that, again, it ends up being a way for people to put money in something that is quote-unquote safer, right? We're not seeing that so much with Bitcoin. However, it is holding on exceptionally well considering all the news. So I see my buddy in there, Steve. So I'm going to just pull you right in. How's it going, man?
Hey, going well. Spicy pre-market. How you doing?
It's going good. It's going good. So yeah, with Mitch away, the two of us are just going to nerd out all day and just talk about, I don't know, Fibonacci's or whatever it is that we're going on about.
I'm in. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so you read that NVIDIA news? I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to plan on doing business and adjust your business plans accordingly when a headline will flip on you every other week, and that's what happened to NVIDIA. I mean, they rolled back or rolled over on that news, and you can see the market did not like it. One other little component too of the semiconductor news is ASML. They missed on their booking numbers overnight, so little double whammy.
These ones, this guy here.
Yeah,
ASML.
Doesn't look too terrible, but
down quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So I think you hit the nail on the head with some of this. The reason I think this is a bigger problem than before is that before it was okay, if you're buying things from China, it's going to be more expensive, right? And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense, whatever. And now it's if you're selling things to China, you just can't. So NVIDIA has kind of put in a bit of a rock and a hard place now, in which they could produce all they wanted. Like, if you want NVIDIA to build factories in the US, well, it's kind of hard to say, hey, or build a factory, but we're going to limit the people you can sell to. So, right, at what point does NVIDIA go, well, we don't really need to build more things if you're gonna limit who we can sell to? And I think that's the big problem. I think that's the problem that we need to that they need to figure out is that what are they going to do when it comes to selling the thing? Mm-hmm. You can make all the GPUs you want in the world, but if it's only America that's going to be allowed to buy them, you're going to come into an oversupply, and then by the time things happen, it will be past dated and all that. So there's no real interest there either. So it's a very, very interesting world that we live in, and I very much don't feel good for people trying to build manufacturing anything just because of how messed up everything is right now.
No doubt. It's wild stuff. And did you happen to take a look at the news from China that caused everything to go crazy about half an hour after the pre-market opened?
No, what was that?
Okay, so they installed a new I don't have the headline in front of me right now, so bear with me, but basically the gist is that they installed a new somebody in some position. I'll get the details in a second, but the gist was they said we are open to talks if Trump can be polite. So a little bit of a
Huh.
caveat there. They never said they weren't open to talks before, but now there's a contingency of Trump being polite. The market took it as good news initially, at least, and ripped, 1% in 1 minute, and it actually nullified the entire move down. So before again, fading pretty hard here, almost to the lows again. So it's interesting. We got to see how the market reacts to these sentiment changes in China news. But it's absolutely the thing that we should be watching for all the reasons you're talking about, right? I mean, that's the story because they're our big partner.
Well, and it's the also the fact that the semiconductors are the things that they got us here, right? They got us out of the pain that happened in the market. So, if they're not gonna help, right? If this entire market, which is a big part of the market, ends up moving lower. So, you could look at SMH. One of the things that I have on my list potentially today to trade is just SOXL is going to be, I think, really big one. So this is, for those who don't know, a triple leverage of the semiconductor index. That's bound to be a pretty big deal. So we need to, see if there's some kind of recovery happen in that. But yeah, this is, not to be like a doom and gloomer. We'll all see how the market reacts to it. But this to me feels a little bit different because now it's where before it was, you could understand the rationale behind it, whether you agree with it or not. You could understand the fact that, okay, they want things built in America, and fine. That whatever. You could, most people I don't think agree, but you could go, okay, it makes sense, right? They want some things to happen in America, and that's fine. The rationale here, again, I think you can understand. It's okay. We don't want China to win the AI war, but now it's like you're coming at these companies from both sides now, and I think that's the difference. You're coming at them from, you have to make things in America, and you can only sell them to America, and it's like that is a different beast, right? If you want America to become a powerhouse, then it's like, okay, well, that's, again, I understand the idea of wanting things manufactured in America, but when you're saying you can't sell them to anyone, well, now you're just really kind of clamping down on profit. So I think the big thing that everyone's got to pay attention to is this going to be a short-lived thing, or is this going to be not short-lived, but a contained thing? Mm-hmm. If it's only AI, and that's the only thing we're going to limit selling to China, then I think we can survive that and continue to move higher. If it's going to start to spread out, and it's like, okay, now we're going to start limiting, I don't know, cars or whatever, where there's going to be all these different things that they're no longer going to be able to do. I think that starts to be a big deal, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we can't, we need to sell something, right? So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
Did you see the news on Hertz, HTZ, this awful company?
What's going on there?
It's gapping up. It disclosed a data breach is all I see, but they announced car rentals are rising a bit, right? Ackman took a little bit of a stake in this. So we're getting a little bit of gap up in Hertz. I know this was one of those meme stocks back in the day. It was moving with. This is one of those that went bankrupt, and then
that's a fun chart. Woo.
Yeah, because they actually went bankrupt, and then Wall Street Bets picked them up and got their stock price go. I think they were able to issue more shares. And
how about that? Wall Street Bets did something tangible for once. Yeah, that's interesting.
They kept AMC alive for a long time. Definitely would have gone under by now. Now, if you were holding this thing, You probably wish it did.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
at
gonna
some point.
say. Adam
But
Aaron sure showed his appreciation to the shareholders, didn't he?
yeah, just dumping things. So
But hey, free popcorn though, so what can you say?
yeah,
What can you say?
market
No, I think you
feels
really hit the
quiet.
nail on the head. Just to go back really briefly to the kind of larger, bigger picture stuff here at play with the United States and push and pull, even without tariffs or even without this 90-day, additional tariffs that are being paused, 10% tariffs are flat. We have multiple negative growth drivers in terms of like Trump's immigration policy. Again, whether you agree or disagree, that's tightening our labor market. That's causing fiscal drag in terms of less taxpayers. So there are tangible problems, even if the tariff narrative gets resolved relatively neatly. So I think that we are going to continue to see the market kind of catch up to the reality that things are a little bit tough right now. We're kind of pulling our own version of Brexit in a way, and it's we saw how that went. So I hate to be too bearish, but I hear you talking about Sox L. I'm sitting comfortably in Sox S, feeling relatively smart this morning. We'll see how we feel at the end of the day, but it's really hard to kind of logic out a clean path out of this that doesn't take months to resolve for me personally. So that's just kind of where my head's at least.
See, I look at it a little different, that it will be kind of one stroke of the pen and it's all gone, right? It's
The tariff stuff. Yeah, I suppose you're right. It's very unique in terms of I can't think of a single other time in history where this amount of economic damage has been done by one guy and could be reversed by that same guy, so that's definitely valid, and always good to keep both sides of it open there.
Yeah, and to kind of further to the point is that if the rest of, so say the tariff thing gets lifted, well, that kind of takes the chains off of JPOW, where right now, and for those paying attention, you gotta understand that we're getting a lot of Fed speak today, so we have to kind of pay attention. When is he talking? Hammock and JPOW at 1:30. So the markets may be a little bit slow off the open, just because, right? We got JPOW coming up, but he's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't right now, where he can't, if he raises rates, then if he raises rates, then he's going to screw kind of the inflation side of things, or he's going to screw the growth side of things, because tariffs are inflationary. So tariffs will cause inflation. So, right, if he's one of those things where he wants to lower rates to deal with inflation, well, he can't, because the tariffs are also going to cost jobs, right? And if the market gets soft, it's going to cause jobs. So he can't raise rates, because then it will destroy jobs, and he can't lower rates, because then so he's just like, either way he's kind of screwed. So what he needs is one side of these things to be lifted, and the only side that we can foresee being lifted is the tariff side, right? So if the tariff side goes away, and then the economy slowing down a bit, just lower rates a bunch, right? Do some quantitative easing. There's tons of tools in their tool belt for that. The problem they have right now is they can't use those tools, because with the tariffs on, if they start using those tools, then inflation's just going to go through the roof again, right? So yeah, it's I don't envy him.
It's got to be a tough environment for Fed chair there. I guess at least it's not LBJ pushing him up against a wall, choking him out. But it's not too far off at this point.
Yeah,
you're definitely on it in terms of him being a little bit handcuffed here at the moment. So I think that's great. Some great color there. I'm gonna be watching that myself very closely.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's these guys, you got to remember, they go to great schools to become economists, and they just want to be economists. They don't want to deal with any of this other stuff, and then they're just always forced to. So just a quick look at the heat map, and we're just seeing technology. Obviously, all of this is kind of getting pulled down with the NVIDIA news. If you have NVIDIA unable to sell chips to China, I think a lot of the question is, okay, well, what else from the tech space is going to have a hard time? So, right, I see people talking about MU here in the chat. I think MU is a good one to take a look at.
Yeah.
All of these semiconductors, they have to be kind of feeling the same thing, where if the administration is going to say, well, you're not allowed to sell to this person, a lot of these things could end up getting hurt. Like, so if you do MU, right, that one's breaking down now. NVIDIA is barely holding on. It's one of those things where is the news priced in, right? So we're getting the gap down. That's just going to kind of happen. What I'm watching potentially is for green arrow kind of buy, a reversal above VWAP here to potentially take another shot if things can push higher. I like the look of that. So I just like to play these overreactions. I think sometimes overnight the markets do get a little bit overreactive, so we can play gap fades a little bit. So yeah, one of those things that I'm watching. Let's see what Steph's going to always be bringing us the craziest stuff out there. So TGL,
gotta love it.
Oh jeez,
that's a chart.
Yeah. Well, gapping up a little bit today, so yeah, playing some of these junkies, the gap and SPV. Yeah, well, gapped yesterday, gapped today too. So
what can you say? Something's going on there. Beverage companies are interesting. Yeah, they've been really punished, but I've never heard of Splash Beverage myself. But maybe I'll crack open a can after this if it goes well for y'all.
Well, then, right. So the king to watch is Celsius. This is actually one that I'm watching. One of my my systematic swing trading side of things is looking for things that have been under the anchored VWAP from all-time high for a very long period of time. And now, it looks like it's getting above it. You can see it's been consolidating here for some time. So you're looking for Celsius. Yeah, you're looking for a beverage company that's like a real company. Great.
Absolutely. No, yeah, good stuff. Let's see. One thing that I was going to mention earlier, but I guess now is as good a time as any, is if you don't mind popping my screen up real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. And you can always, right? You just have to remove on whatever's up there.
Oh, okay. I don't want to yank you out of there.
No.
But I just wanted to highlight this. This is SMH, the weekly chart, and you were talking about how, chips are how we got here. Like, this whole move is how we got here with the market on chip SPACs. Broadcom's a huge component in the ETFs, TSM, and of course NVIDIA. So they really got to cooperate if we're going to continue this crazy move up and to the right, into end of year. So this is an area I'm watching very closely. But for me, it's a pretty clear markdown going on, a pretty clear stage. What would you consider that? Stage 1 accumulation, stage 2 markup, stage 3 distribution, and stage 4 markdown now. So we got the nice move off of the kind of return to the breakout level, and now we have this little imbalance here, this little gap between the weekly candles. And I've been keeping a really close eye on this, and we've wicked up twice, and it seems to me we might be starting to reject. There was a lot of negative bearish flow on SMH, NVIDIA, all of these kind of chip names over the past week or so. So this is the top watch for me. This is my biggest short position, and I'm just letting it cook. I got short up in this area here. I was like kind of fluctuating red to green for the past couple days, and then it's looking better today. So I'm going to keep an eye on that for sure. But like you said, it's such a big component for the move up. So yeah, it'll be a big component for the move down too.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's I am not a news guy, but I keep an eye on it, and this news feels to me. Again, this is really hard as like a quant to say every time I go feels like, but it feels like this is a bit of a bigger deal again, just because this is more than tariffs, right? This is more than just, hey, we want you to make the stuff over here.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit more like this is like, okay, we're going to limit what you can sell. And big companies are really good at dealing with costs, right? Things like NVIDIA, they're really good at like bringing up, okay, we've got, inflation, they were fine with, oh, it's going to cost us more to buy things from the US, fine with that. They're good at that. They can deal with that. They'll source different places. It'll take some time, but they'll deal with it. The capping revenue, that's a different beast, right? It's much harder to go, okay, well, if we can't sell, that's a a different kind of beast entirely. So yeah, it again feels like this is a bit more of a big deal.
I would definitely agree with everything you're saying there. Just on the technical side of things, just want to note potential head and shoulders forming here on NVIDIA's hourly chart. We had the one push up. This one formed a little bit of a head, I think. It popped a little bit above, and then we had another little rise up here, which couldn't breach the previous. And then we also have a little downtrend or uptrend line there that's been violated too. So I'm going to keep an eye on this kind of neckline area, this call it 103 to 105, 103 to 106 zone. And if we lose that, I think it could be floodgates down to 100 for the test, at least, of where we broke out from. And everybody likes those round numbers. I know I do. So I'll be keeping an eye on that for a trade too. But with this gap down, it kind of messed up my plans. I was expecting this cash session, not pre-market. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah. So really, I think today ends up being a pretty big day, where if we just shrug off this news and move higher, shows you a lot about sentiment, because I think the news is a pretty big deal. If we're done with that, if we're like, oh yeah, that sucks, and then we just shrug it off and go from there. I think that's one thing. If we don't get that, if we start to sell off, then it shows, okay, there was a reason, or people were looking for an excuse to sell off. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, is that the market, you don't want to look at the news and say, okay, this is bad news, I'm going to sell. This is good news, I'm going to buy. You want to look at the news and say, okay, this is bad news or good news, and then see how the market reacts. Sorry.
No worries.
Kids going to daycare. Oh, it's bad. Yeah, so if it's obviously bad news, you're taking one of the largest companies in the world, you're saying you can't make as much money as you would like. If it shrugs it off, great, then we're in a bullish environment. If it doesn't, it's bad. And that's kind of the big thing that I think people need to look at.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think that this morning was a great example. I mean, the NVIDIA news was bearish. That move stuck pretty well. And then we had this little bit of China hope, like a ray of potential sunshine and a potential route towards de-escalation. And it kind of just got sold off. So what does that tell us? Maybe it tells us that we're not quite done yet, and that wasn't really enough to do what the market would hope.
They just think that there's no shot that one stipulation is gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So very interesting pre-market action. I know I didn't get a lot of sleep because I was just wrapping up for the night. I checked my charts just to see what the opening half hour did in pre-market. And I actually caught this candle, not caught. I didn't trade it, but I saw it happen live and I was like, what is going on? So I spent the next half hour running around looking for headlines and all that. So a little sleepy, but I'm really looking forward to today. The day before OPEX, we have expiration for one, and also just historically, these days before OPEX, especially in the past year, there have been really big moves. A lot of front running to kind of reposition into that OPEX, and a lot of shake and bake. So, really fun action out there. I would assume.
Yeah, for sure, and it certainly could be. I'm just trying to fix one of my strategies here. Yeah. So for me, it's one of those, I'm kind of torn because generally speaking, on days that Jay Powell speaks, or the days you have a big event later in the day, it's really about those early trades, right? It's really about those, you want to trade quick, you want to trade early, because you get to the point where, you have to have this. You have the event, you have a big opening drive, and then you have nothing. And then generally speaking, what happens? FOMC days, that kind of thing, you see a lot of it. You get this massive opening drive in the market, and then the market just kind of chills out. And then after JPOW is done shutting up, then you get a real move. Yeah. But at the same time, with such a kind of a big gap and a volatile open, I'm kind of like, do I even want to trade in the morning? So yeah, I'm going to watch kind of like the first 5-10 minutes and then see what's going on from there. And then I think that will give us a really good kind of clue or understanding of what is, what potentially does the market care about. If they're very worried, I think we're going to see this really quickly. So on top of just looking at the market, I'm going to spend a lot of time focused on NVIDIA and just SMH as a whole, or SOXL, or whatever derivative you want to look at. I think is huge. So
interesting to see NVIDIA showing a little more life than the rest of the semis. I guess it could just be a factor of liquidity. They're the one that everybody wants to trade, but something to keep an eye on, I suppose. Still posting top wicks there, though. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Into my little support zone. So, yeah, 4 minutes till market open. Good times, good times. Everybody's getting their game plans ready, getting their war faces on. I don't know if anybody knows really what to expect here, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be more than fun. It's going to be a wild time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's yeah, the semiconductors. There's two places I think with the market you can't really mess with too much, and it is semiconductors and it's the banks, right? Semiconductors power absolutely everything, and then the banks, the banks fund all of the fun things that the market wants to do, and if you're going to have one of those times where either one of those is under attack, that's going to be a bad moment. So, for example, right, we all know with 2020, right, that's what happened there, right? The banks were not under attack, but the banks were the ones hurting. That brought down the whole market. And then in the tech bubble, we had not semiconductors and internet and all that really having a hard time, and they got that brought down the whole market. So in the past, it's been technology and it's been financials. Those are your two important areas. So you can't mess with those. And currently, one of them is being messed with. Not quite both of them yet, but I could definitely see that happening. So I'm looking for, again, if the market shrugs this off and we get some sort of kind of reversion back through VWAP in the morning or something, I'm going to look to be a buyer there, and I'll probably just pick SOXL, I think, as opposed to having to play any of the individual names. I think SOXL is going to be a good way to do it. I don't know if it's just me getting old, but I'm just liking these ETFs more and more, where I don't have to take so much single stock ideas, and I can just kind of say, okay, well, if I'm right about what's going to happen thematically, I can just take they have an ETF for everything nowadays, so I could just take one of those. And then if not, and we sell, then it's hard for me to chase gaps, and I think this is just kind of the trader for me in so long that when the move happens, if I'm not in it, I just sit and wait and kind of wait for the next one. And I think that we're kind of in this scenario where yes, we could get a potential large gap down, and that gap down could continue. I just don't see it. Right. Yeah. So I just chasing the gap down becomes hard. So if you're positioned short, I think that's great. And then if not, I don't know what you're going to do. So let's talking about Kingsoft. Let's take a look at that. And again, you can always come and give us what you're looking at. This was one of these. Oh, I thought this was crazier than it was. It's gapping down pretty hard into an old support level right here. So this would be an interesting one. If you got a short in the pre-market, great. But I may actually add this to the fade list, and it might just be going with the NVIDIA news. It says Kingsoft Cloud, so it could definitely have something good to do with that. We've got 1 minute to the open, so like always, I like to just watch as we get started here. So a couple areas to note, right? The VWAP, this blue VWAP right here. This is from the announcement, the folding on tariffs. So it's resistance through here. It was support a little bit over in the morning, and now we're back there now. So I think that's an important zone. We can watch the same VWAP. You see, I'll actually make that blue just so that it lines up.
All right, there's the bell.
So right there, and then we've got pre-market lows. Some of these lines, clean this up a bit. So we got post-market highs right here, and then we've got pre-market lows right down there. So I'm going to watch just these opening few ticks. I think this is going to be kind of telling for the day. If we can get above this VWAP and hold, again, you can see all the alerts that I have here, looking at basically semiconductors to the long side, And then I've got HTZ potentially short, but I think that already triggered the pre-market. So
yeah, I closed a little bit of my success short, just 1/3 of it, just harvesting cash, playing the edges like you're talking about. If they give me a better look, maybe I just add right back in. Maybe I let it cook a little, but that was a strong opening candle, so 13% overnight, nothing to sneeze at, you know.
The fact that, like, these VWAPs just surprise me. It should, right? Brian Shannon's been doing this for many, many moons. But just the support that we find on these major VWAPs is super interesting. We definitely something kind of algorithmic. So initial push up, we hit VWAP with the pre-market session on, and then fade it from that pretty quickly. So go take a look at NVIDIA. Again, I think the opening drive of this one's going to be important. So far, holding the pre-market low. Kind of surprised, to be honest. I expected, maybe a little bit of a flush off the open of pre-market low and then a rally, but so far that's holding. I'm watching AMD. Some relative strength there. I guess maybe everyone's finally get excited about AMD. That hey, it's at least they don't have to worry about selling those chips to China because they can't make them. I guess it's a positive thing. And SOXL doing well. So everything having a little bit of an opening rally. So we can see what happens here in 5 minutes. We don't have anything. Business inventories, the AHB housing index. So those are 2-star events, not 3-star events. There's 2 of them. I don't know if you multiply those together. Maybe that's going to be a big thing, but that's in a half hour from now. So that's the top of the hour.
All right, we swept the first pre-market kind of swing high there out of the kind of fall off that we saw about an hour ago. So just keeping an eye on previous pivots and pre-market has been really helpful for me to kind of gauge market strength and see what's kind of going on. So I'm just keeping an eye on that. That's where the first tiny bit of sellers stepped in here. Doesn't look weak, but just noting. Like Michael said, it's so great to not be super itchy trigger finger the first 5-10 minutes of a day like this. It really can pay to kind of just sit back and analyze and kind of get your bearings in these choppy seas.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the way to go. Just making some updates to my alerts, but so far anyway, it looks like the opening drive is higher. I may take a shot in some of these if they end up triggering there. Just NVIDIA doing very well. Again, I expected a little sell off the open there, maybe a little liquidity grab under this zone. But yeah, so far so good. So far holding. Let's go back to 5 minutes here. Yeah, so far everything's looking way better than I thought. So I don't think we're in it shrugged off the bad news yet. I think we need to see a little bit more action there. HTZ is going to be the miss of the day, isn't it? Yeah. Problem is, a lot of these things I find are triggering sometimes in the pre-market, right? So HTZ, I looked at this one and said, this is a junk company. This gap up probably means nothing. And you'll see the blue arrow will pop up in a second. It'll be somewhere in the pre-market, but I just don't. Stop losses don't work in the pre-market, so it's like you'd have to just kind of take it and put your stop at 470 and then just sit there staring at it all morning.
It's always fun.
Yeah, it's not what I want to do. That's why I'm a systems trader as opposed to anything else.
So one name that I'm keeping an eye on is IDR as well as NB, and these are in kind of the rare earth elements space. IDR in particular on the long-term chart, it really gapped up today and kind of messed up my plans. But long-term, this is a really beautiful cup and handle on the weekly. So it's a fun one to keep an eye on. It's just so pretty, but it's hard to buy when it's up 45% in 2 weeks. So they are. Sorry.
AMD, SOXL, and NVIDIA all triggered green pie alerts. So I think I'm just going to take SOXL because it will just have probably the same amount of juice as anything else. And right, if NVIDIA moves, I'll be right. If NVIDIA doesn't, I'll be wrong. But again, the idea here, again, someone got a lot of good comments about drawing these out, and this is just the game plan, right? You get something that's under VWAP pretty much all morning, gapping down. You just see if it makes a move to the 2-day VWAP. So that's a 1 point, I don't know, say we go here, 1.75 risk reward. So if I think there's a 50-50 chance or better that this thing comes and bounces up here, just kind of have to take the trade, right? So that's the idea there. It's just,
yeah, absolutely.
You take the shot and away you go. So
yeah, and I'm just closing a little more of my shorts here actually too, since my gains are disappearing a little bit there, but
not ideal.
Yeah, no worries. It was a good overnight swing. That's how we play the game.
Yeah, it's just a game of probabilities. That's all it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And taking the losses on the chin as well as the wins, you gotta. It's all part of it, right? You don't get to just everything doesn't get to go straight up or down in this case. So, ain't no worries. Ain't no worries. Nice move there on SPY. So I'll be watching the area that we just pinged down from, that 533.35-ish. That's the 50% fib of the Chinese news candle range. If we can clear that, I'd be looking for those pre-market swings high to negotiate. But it seems like a decent ripper here.
Yeah, so SOXL's moving a bit for now. The SPY would have triggered the same kind of alert there. And again, this blue line is that anchored VWAP from the earnings announcement, or from the tariff announcement. So just, again, an area of interest, because if there's any algorithms out there that are saying, hey, we want to get a pretty good price from when Trump announced the tariffs were backing down, that's the current price. So kind of wild that we came right to it in the pre-market and then bounced from there. So we'll see if that holds. We have pre-market lows and then pre-market highs. So really, we're kind of stuck in the middle of the pre-market range. So I'm not getting too excited for either side, for the bull camp or the bear camp.
No doubt. Sorry, just checking one thing here.
So yeah, Shane, so quick question on what ADS is, American Depository Receipt. It's essentially just a foreign company that trades in America. So, you have Apple, right? And Apple's going to be traded all over the world. So if you think about other companies, Volkswagen or something, right? Pick a lot of the common ones are all the Chinese names, right? So they are domiciled in China. They primarily trade in China. So they don't want Americans to buy them and have voting rights. Like if you buy a BABA ADS, you don't have any voting rights in the company anymore. You just get exposure to the equity. So it's almost just like a derivative that says, okay, we're going to allow people to get exposure on the other side, and that will kind of track with China, right, and move with that BABA security. But it's not actually owning the equity, because if you own the equity, you actually have ownership and you have claim to that. So it's the long story short, and the thing that's most important for our traders, just know, if it's an ADS, it's a foreign company. It's domiciled somewhere else. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they operate somewhere else. They could operate solely in America, but maybe it's one of those like Cayman Island, Bermuda head office things, Luxembourg, or one of those tax havens. But because of that, it means it trades somewhere on a different exchange and then will start to trade. So what you'll generally find with anything with ADS in the name is tons and tons of gaps. Right? If you look at BABA, right, tons and tons of gaps. Like on every day, there's going to be a gap because it does most of its trading in China, and then when the market opens in the States, it opens there. So long story short, just ADS is a foreign entity that is traded in the old US of A, which is one of the main benefits, I think, to the US markets. And one of the reasons, I'm asked all the time as a Canadian why I don't trade the Canadian markets. It's because like all of the good Canadian stocks you can find on the US markets. Like it's one of the main benefits of what you guys do is that you can trade European stocks, you can trade US stocks, you can trade all those kind of things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, still looking at SMH, still looking strong, not ready to look back short on anything really right now. As I'm sure you'd probably agree, we still looking pretty decent, pretty constructive. I am noting that 50% fib that I mentioned is acting as a short-term pivot here, that 533.35-ish. So just keeping an eye on it. Just keeping an eye on it. I
Yeah.
am still biased bearish, so it's really hard for me with these gap downs to not take the money and run. So I left a third of the position on, and I'm letting it do its thing. I might miss my add back because hey, I just sold and it feels a little silly to swing right back in even if things start looking a little rough. So I'll be keeping an eye and probably waiting for another 20 minutes before I make a decision regarding directionality today. We hollowed out such a range to the upside, you know.
Well, in 20 minutes we have that those 2-star event economic numbers here. We have that business inventories and the housing market.
Mhm.
So, might make sense to wait for that reason alone. If it's one 2-star event, who cares? Probably not going to move anything. If it's two 2-star events, then yeah, maybe that could be a bigger deal.
Yeah, 4 stars, you know, back from my Grand Theft Auto days. I know that's a big deal, right? You got to respect it.
That's where they
So
start sending the tanks after you, right?
exactly. No tanks, please. But also, just when you get a big move overnight, I've learned to say, "Thank you, Mr. Market. Take the money, and then reevaluate." You know, and it rarely feels bad in retrospect to lock in a 13% swing overnight. So I'm coping just in case the market just knifes massively, and
Yeah. Well,
we
yeah,
made our money.
but you kind of have to, right? You kind of have to, have that where you're like, okay, this is, you take the money and you run, right? And you
Yeah,
understand that, hey, we're trading here,
exactly.
it's, we're betting kind of the best we can, right? And all probabilities, you'll never know what's going to happen next. As soon as you kind of get to that mantra, which is why, when you said bearish, I kind of grimaced, or bias, I said kind of grimaced because as a quant, right, I'll push everybody. I kind of joked in our company WhatsApp there that I'm gonna indoctrinate everyone to systematic at some point. As soon as you don't have bias and my system said buy, I'm going to buy. My system said sell, I'm going to sell. My system said do nothing, I'm going to do nothing. It's much freeing. I don't know if it's necessarily going to make the most amount of money, but it is the most freeing for sure.
I respect the heck out of that. You know, where I'm at in my systems development is my brain is still the computer at this point, so I got to be a little biased just to, just to kind of trust my thesis to some degree. But like you said, when there's this much movement early, I really do have to kind of neutralize that and just try to be as objective as possible and not let my own personal feelings or thoughts or anything get in the way of what I'm seeing play out in front of me.
Yeah, and a lot of it was again working at the hedge fund game for so long. The systematic guys were the ones that stood the test of time, right?
Yeah.
The thematic guys, the guys who played a very specific niche. They came, they made a bunch of money, and they left. So, right, depending on your goals, it certainly wouldn't be a bad thing to be a guy like the distressed debt fund I always talk about in 2008 went from like 5 million to 5 billion in very short order because they had the niche, so everyone wanted to give them money. But then when distressed debt went away, so did they. So but again, the manager probably pulled a couple hundred million. So
Nothing to sneeze at.
good, done for the day, and then confirming that you're getting away. Look, it's starting to. I don't know where you are in the world, but at least up here in Canada, it's starting to get a little bit nice out. So the snow is melted, the birds are chirping, all that. It's very good to kind of get away and stretch your arms and
Oh yeah. And it's so easy to just sit in front of the screen all day and get just engulfed in all of these swirling news stories, doom and gloom. And like you said, it's a beautiful time of year. It's a great time to be appreciative for what we do got, even if a lot of things are in flux. So hey, if you locked in a win, great job. Love to see it. You're doing the right thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this before, but with JPOW speaking later in the day, again, sometimes you will see, like you've noticed the market action here has been a little bit slow back and forth, where we pushed up a little bit and down a little bit, but it's been slow to kind of open the market. And again, it could be they're sizing each other up to see if they're going to break down under pre-market lows or not. The other thing could be hold until these numbers that are coming up, and then Jay Powell and waiting for kind of what he's going to say, because he seems to be the calming voice in the room right now, where everyone's like, okay, Papa J Powell, save us. Like, tell us that you can fix whatever he's going to break and everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm. But last time he was a little bit hawkish from what I recall. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Maybe we rally up into it, and then maybe some more fireworks. Who knows? We are getting a decent rejection off of that 50 fib I mentioned, the 533.35-ish handle. So something to keep an eye on, but we are holding pre-market lows so far. It's pretty spooky, but let's see what happens there.
Well, and I think just open up a scanner here to see if there's anything crazy going on. But yeah, I think with his kind of hawkishness, I think he's going to be kind of defiantly data dependent, right? Where I think he's just going to kind of put his foot down and say, listen, enough, I'm not going to play this game. These are the data points I look at, and these are the two levers I have. This is all I have. I have these data points, I have these levers. And then everything else other than that, we need to just, we need to just wait, right? And just see what happens in the world. Because I can't affect any of these things. Because anything that's happening when it comes to tariffs and all that, we're not going to see that right now, right? Yeah. We're not going to see that right away. It's going to take a little bit to trickle through. So I think you're going to hear probably a fun drinking game is take a shot every time he says data dependent.
Gotta love it. Gotta love us numbers nerds, right?
Yeah, make trades. So we're back to that VWAP, and it's not the pre-market low, but that's a pretty significant pre-market support. Eyeing our way back down to that. Through that, we could flush a bit. Let's take a look at the important guys today, which is NVIDIA still holding strong, AMD still doing okay. So the Qs outperforming. Qs are outperforming a little bit, and my SOXL both flat on. So, which is shocking because the way the market's pulling back here, it shows that there's got to be some other sectors that are moving as well. So we can go in, grab the heat map here, and we can do the 1 day change and see. Yes, it's a lot of technology, but retail actually down pretty significantly as well. Maybe getting spooked a bit that maybe they won't be able to sell to China. Right? Maybe that's a bit of a fear that's going on there. So yeah, some down action there.
No doubt.
Potentially occurring.
We're seeing a little bit of relative strength in energy and real estate. Pretty risk-off areas of the market, I would say, kind of safe havens. So something to keep an eye on. Decent bounce, holding the low of day.
Yeah, holding so far. I always like to go to the daily chart just to go, okay, nothing happened.
Yeah,
no. Little tiny chart here. I know a little bounce, so we need a little bit more to happen to kind of spice things up a little bit. But
oh wow, I just looked over my little tiny placeholder position of NB. This speculative rare earth elements play is already up 7%. That's always the ones that you just take a nibble on, right? So way she goes. NB. I'm not a beef master. Maybe I should be trading that. But
no master beef. Yeah, it's a nice gap up there.
Yeah, pretty impressive move there. And this is the same, speculative rare earth element space. I'm still defending my my USAR position. 2 tranches in there, up 30% in 2 days. So getting a little antsy, but it seems so strong, So that's I'm still hanging out in that one. Just shares, just doing my thing.
Anytime the SPAC price is kind of the same as the IPO, right? And I talk about this all the time, where very often, you have some sort of undercut of the IPO price. Right? It happens all the time with IPOs, and happens all the time, it seems, with dealing with SPACs. Right? So many SPACs undercut the IPO price. So when if you kind of have the same thing going on, then you could probably build a strategy of buying these things back through the IPO price, which in this case is the de-SPAC price, which is like 10, $11 usually. So it did just that, right? Undercut that price for a period of time, came back through, and it rallied back through that de-SPAC price. I think there's something there, right? Because a lot of these companies, and I can't think of them offhand, but most of these companies didn't do anything, right? Aren't doing anything, and will never do anything. Right?
Yeah,
a lot of
they're
most
not
of these
making
guys.
money, not close to it.
Yeah. So anyone that then comes back through that price, that's just, it's basic relative strength. It's showing that for some reason that, the market likes this over everything else that's happening there. So,
Yeah. So Spy's
you know,
knocking on VWAP's door there. Woo! Smoke stick.
yeah, it came back down again. So yeah, it's just a battle. So we have 9 minutes. Just for the people out there, a little warning: if you're trading right now, it's again, I don't think it's not a massive event, but it's two small events, and we have 9 minutes until those two small events. So it could be enough to kind of shake it up. It could be enough to get some algos firing, get some movement going. So 8 minutes now until that. We'll see if that ends up holding or selling off. Kind of surprising how well SOXL and NVIDIA are doing, considering the SPY is hitting new lows of the day.
Yeah. I'm glad
it's going to end up
I
being
got
that
out of my
should have just
Soxus at this point.
Yeah, it's going to end up being that I should have just taken NVDL. It's going to be the 100% the way it works, just by the nature of things.
Many such cases, just should have played NVIDIA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the leader is always great to watch. Always great to watch, And this looks very heavy to me on my higher time frame charts. We do have a lot of room down, but I don't know, like I said, these gap downs kind of mess with my head. So I got out of a good amount of my shorts, but although they were in the Soxus. So I unfortunately, I nibbled the tiniest placeholder that doesn't even matter, just to kind of keep my eyes on the price of SQQQ, just when we were kind of looking heavy into the lows there. I didn't want to say anything because it's not really good trading to buy into support or to short into support, so. Well, hopefully I'll get a clean back test of that, and then I can look to scale in a bit.
Yeah, well, I think we're in the mode now of, is this kind of an undercut and rally? I would like to think that there's probably pre-market lows is where, because generally speaking, these undercut and rallies, you're getting some sort of fear behind first, and I just doesn't feel like fear right now. So, it's 529.50. That's going to be our pre-market low. We get under that, and then we start rallying through. That's where I'll start to get interested in maybe discretionary trade on that.
So yeah, I'm watching these pre-market lows on SPY and Qs. That's kind of the next level of interest for me if we can continue this move down. And then beyond that, we got some room down to 524.50 on SPY, I'd say. That's the 50 fib of this.
524. That's a big move.
It is a big move. Yeah. But we do have some historical data to back up big moves into pre-market. I think they're usually at least 1% in the past year or so, and with increased volatility. Just saying, not saying we can get there today, but that's kind of my next big target for like a swing.
Yeah, a lot of times when you see giant candles like that too, you do see some sort of retest in them just to see, right? Are people bidding in there because they're kind of sad they missed out on it, type of thing.
Right, no doubt. Also, just to note, SPY 530 handle coming in. That's, round numbers are always at least a little bit responsive, even if it's more of a psychological thing than anything else. So keeping an eye on that.
Yes, so the 529.50, that's going to be the lows. We got 5 minutes until these economic reports. Then after that, it's nothing except crude oil inventories until JPOW. And crude oil inventories, again, unless you're just trading oil, they're pretty much nothing burger for the whole market. I used to pretty exclusively trade those numbers. It was a great time. I don't think it has the effect it used to, but it was one of those back when you could get on these numbers before a lot of the general public, right? You would just I'd spend most of Wednesday morning just kind of researching what was most people were expecting for different numbers from the different banks and all of that. And then you just listen to the squawk, and when the number came out, if it was better or worse, you just look at the initial price action and punch in, do a little scalp trade. In and out kind of as quick as you can.
Love to see it. Yeah, the older I get, maybe it's me being over 30 here, about to turn 31 in 2 days. Oh, 1 day, wow. Maybe we'll see a continuation of me leaning into shares, because it's been working for me. I don't shake myself out as much.
You doing anything fun for being an old man?
Doing anything fun? I mean, I'm going to dinner tonight. I'm going to a rock concert this weekend with a good friend that I actually met on Discord a few years ago, and now we're real life buddies. So yeah, can't ask for a better group of people, and it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna have fun.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm old, but I'm not that old yet. I'm still getting the pit,
Well, that's very nerdy of you. It's fantastic.
Totally. I do think you slow down a little bit after 30, not in a bad way. I feel like much more composed in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm starting to hit my stride. I'm in my prime, Michael. I'm in my prime.
I'm knocking on the door of 40, so I'll just tell you that really nothing changes. You're just older and you go to sleep a little bit earlier. That's about it.
That doesn't sound so bad. You look pretty good for knocking on 40 there. So I'll hope to be on that trajectory myself.
I'll take it. The one thing I think you learn as you get older is there are no adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one knows anything, right? There is no. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, this. As soon as you're old, you know everything. Like, no, you don't. You just try to figure it out.
No doubt. So we are seeing a little bid step in here, trying to back test the low of day. I might take a little nibble short if I see the weakness.
Two minutes to that number, so just be careful.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm a little anxious into the half-hour flip. I never like to fade what looks like, or to just believe what looks like an obvious turn into that. I like to kind of see the actual candle play out a little bit, and see if there's a change of character on that. So I'm keeping my hands and feet out of the machinery for now, but I still have the initial 1/3 of my short to defend. I'm not going to be crying all day if we just dump, but
So
it's kind of nice.
Sam just has a question here about tried to close a position yesterday after market. It didn't work until today when the market opened. Is there a solution for this? Most likely what you did, you can go and make a support ticket and they can look closer to your account. But my bet is what you did is that you try to do a market order, or you try to just hit the X button on Trader Evolution to get you out of the position, which is a market order as well. And it's important to note that market orders do not work in pre-market or post-market, and that's just across. That's not a us thing. That's just the exchanges don't allow market orders and stop orders in pre and post-market. So if you want to get out of position after hours or before the market opens, you just have to use a limit order. So look at, say you're long, look at where the bid is and just fill out a limit order for the bid price and hit go, and it will close. I have done a lot of trading with Trader Evolution in the pre-market and the post-market, so it definitely works. Yeah, it's that limit order that I think or that market order that's probably caused a problem. And if you just click the close button, or you click the X button on the position or whatever, those are all sending out market orders. So you have to go manually, and you've got to type in where you want to exit, and that's obviously going to be the bid price if you're long, the ask price if you're short, and you can get out of that there. So just right? Make sure you're doing that. And again, that's whether you're doing it your own broker or us or anything. Just market orders do not work in pre and post market. And
Yeah.
we should be kind of thankful they do, because the market makers would just have a field day with those. Right, the way the spread opens up as soon as the market closes, they would just love it if people were sending out stop orders and market orders and getting pinged all over the place. They would think that's the greatest thing in the world.
So Sam, one more thing to mention. That was all great explanation, Michael. Just in case you're not aware, options markets are completely closed after hours and before market. So if there was an options position, you gotta wait till cash session, brother. That's just the way it goes. But yeah, just a little caveat there.
Yeah, but yeah, you can definitely send out limit orders pre and post. The other thing to keep in mind too is make sure you have any other associated orders canceled before you send out the limit order. And the reason for that is, say you had 25K account, right? You're going to have 2.5K of overnight buying power. If you're in a position and then there's a stop loss out, and then you're trying to do a limit order to get out, it's going to kind of think your potential of getting double filled. So it would expand that you'd be trying to do way more in buying power. So that could be a problem as well that I've seen quite a bit of. So make sure every other order you have out there is canceled, and then put the order through, because I've seen that happen where if it tries to think that you're sending more orders out than you have buying power for, so it just will cancel the order entirely.
Good point.
Yeah, it's one of the, again, the pre-market, post-market trading is just what I talked about this morning, how it kind of bugs me when some of these things are triggering off the open, or in the pre-market. I don't get them, like that's HTZ trade. Right, I would have loved to have gotten short somewhere in here, and then I would have been out and had fun. But it's so finicky trading in pre and post market that I just don't do it. The spreads are super wide, liquidity's low, the thing can just rip, and you don't have a protective stop. You're just going to kind of get screwed with it. So you just got to be real careful.
Yeah, the amount of times I've gotten yeehawed on a position because I just I saw the move happening and I tried to chase it right as the bell opened or right before the bell, and then it reversed on me or whatever. It's pretty rough. So I just try to keep clear of that kind of stuff. There's the longer you do this, the more you realize that there are ways to make this to control a lot more variables than just slap and ask it open, and it really does pay to be prudent and really take the best setups and be mechanical about it. Like Michael's always talking about it. Michael, the machine, he sees the setup. If it's good, he takes it. If it isn't, off his mind. I love that.
It's I think, and you kind of do it by necessity too, right? It's, you young men out there, you've got a little bit more resilience when it comes to mental capital and all that. And as you get older, you're just like, I just got to get a robot to do most of this. So yeah, be careful pre and post market. It can get, there's a lot of money there. It can get rough. So so just make sure that everything else is canceled. If you're going to do it, you just focus on that one thing. You're using limit orders. Again, I've done it. I experimented a little bit trading with the pre-market with my particular setup. And although I think over the long run, it probably would work out, it just wasn't worth the kind of crazy stop outs that you can get and getting shut down for the day because something moved just insanely because it's pre-market. So a lot more control you can have happen here. So those numbers came out. Market didn't seem to care at all. Like it anyway. But we're putting in a bit of a green candle at these lows. Again, I would be very, very surprised at this point if you make your way all the way down to pre-market lows that you don't at least try to push through them, just knowing that there's so many stops and targets and algorithms and things that just look at buying pre-market highs and selling pre-market lows and doing all that. It would just surprise me if you don't, at least test that in some degree, in some way. It would shock me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's just sitting there, just tantalizing, and market makers are licking their chops, thinking about all the orders they can transact down there. So that's how I envision it. I know it's not quite as cartoonish as that, but it does seem like price always has an incentive to go where the most orders can be filled. And that just makes sense as a market mechanics thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, I don't think it's, you have to be too conspiratorial on it, right? To me, it just makes sense, right? There is, I say this all the time, and people, so I know some people get triggered, but like the market maker doesn't care about your order, right? He's not fishing. You're not putting out a stop loss order and he's going, oh, got him. Then, taking a trade. That's just not how it works. He just couldn't care less about your 100 share, your 1,000 share order. But where there's an obvious level of a lot of orders, you better believe that they're going to try to push there to get that kind of liquidity because they're trying to make money as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Michael, you say they don't care, but you haven't seen my trades. They're coming for me. I swear. Nah, I'm kidding.
Well, it's why I always love the saying of put your stop where most people put your entry where most people put their stop, because again, you just see it so much. It's the next strategy that I'm going to look to work on within Trade the Pool. Now that other strategy I have is completely systematized, just trades on its own on my brokerage account. The next one is to try to find something, and I think like an undercut of yesterday's high or low, or pre-market high or low, could be a really good one to potentially play, because it's a pretty big deal, right?
I love those failed breakout, failed breakdown setups, because some of the strongest setups are ones that don't play out in the initial direction, and then they just squeeze everybody. They just yank it the other way. So again, I'm personifying the big ominous they. Just the market flips directions, and it goes the path of least resistance is really how I would say it, which seems to be up at this point. We'll see how far that trend lasts, but.
Yeah, so we're coming back up now. Kind of fitting if we came back up, we tapped the VWAP from the other side, then we pushed down.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. So I might add a little bit to the remaining shorts that I have there, but only if it looks good. I'm not feeling too anxious to trade this, honestly. It's that's kind of one good thing about a big pre-market move. It's like, well, maybe the juice has been squeezed. Maybe I don't need to go crazy and do all that. Sam is asking, do you have a video that explains this regarding the message execution? You can definitely look on YouTube, and there will be some good resources on types of market orders, types of orders, comparing limit orders to market orders, and you can also reach out to your broker. I'm not sure who you're trading with, but they'd be more than happy to help you sort through this.
Yeah, and if again if you're with Trade the Pool here, you can go right to your dashboard. There's a little button to open up a ticket there. You can tell them the exact order you had problems with, and they'll be able to look at the account and then kind of know from there. We obviously can't look into your account here, but again, if it wasn't executed, then it's one of those things where it's not like they're not executing it for fun, right? There's some sort of, again, I think it was probably pre-market or post-market or something like that. That was the problem, doing market orders versus limit orders, or having other orders outstanding that were conflicting with that order. Other than that, again, you can just place the order to get out. If you're long in position, you can sell, and vice versa. Obviously, and also right, make sure you're understanding that at 8 Eastern, it's just closed. You can't do anything there, right? It's not a 24-hour market in the way that a lot of other markets are. But generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, if there's pre-market, post-market issues, it has to do with limit versus market orders.
Yeah, and it's a lot to wrap your head around, especially if you're on the newer side. It takes a while to get comfortable with this stuff. It's a whole new world. So yeah, just be kind to yourself and keep on learning, and you'll be in good shape. It's a hard game that we're playing, Michael. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's wild that I also think that right, there's so many people who come in and they're like, oh, I want to be able to make money in a month or two. It's like, well, if you were trying to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you certainly wouldn't. So
Yeah, I know very few traders who are profitable within their first year. You know, we all have to pay tuition. I'm not saying it's impossible. They're fast learners, and that could be you,
Yeah.
especially if you hang out with us. But it's it is just you got to put the hours in, and you got to practice in the right way, just like with anything, right? You can't just pick up a guitar and randomly jam on it and expect to make cool noises. You gotta really practice your scales, practice your maybe theory, maybe, just focus practice in any kind of way. So it's the same with trading in any skill, I think.
So yeah, it's asking also, can you trade with TradingView? Not yet. I think that's on the docket to allow trade. You can trade through TradingView with Trader Evolution. Again, the same market limit, that kind of stuff will still take place because that's not a Trader Evolution specific thing. It's just how markets work. But not yet. I use TradingView as, just because I love their charting, their analysis. I do a lot with their kind of webhooks, alerting for auto trading. It's just a great platform for general research, and I think the charts are kind of the best in the game that you can get out there. So
I agree.
That's the that's why I use it. You don't need to. Like, I think a lot of people could get by with their broker's charts just fine. Again, as a CMT, on top of what I do here, I do a lot of other things. So having one platform that kind of does all of that is great for that. So keep getting interrupted by the British man. Interactive brokers yelling at me. Oh, HTZ. So yeah, a little short there in HTZ just triggered. I don't think I'll take it in my trading pool account because I missed it, but technically broke up through, put the blue arrow in. So again, I have these things just fully. I make the list in the morning. I send out the webhooks. It just gets traded for me.
That seemed like we're kind of forming a bit of constructiveness here. Going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, back up to that pre-market low, back up to VWAPs there. I'm kind of in the thing where I think we have probably another 15 minutes for market action to happen. And then I think we start to get that slowdown before JPOW, where things just really kind of chill out and calm down. And, we wait for him to hopefully save us and not to ruin us.
Help me, JPOW. You're my only hope. Yeah, it's one of those.
Please, a voice of reason in the room would be fantastic, Mr. JPOW.
Yeah, an adult in the room sounds pretty good right about now. I don't know. I don't know how you're feeling, but I could use some peace of mind or clarity of some type. It would help settle.
But I think that's a lot of why Wall Street actually really likes him, is because he talks about being data dependent. He's going to be data dependent, whether he's wrong or right. He's making decision based off the data points that he's talked about, the data points that he's using, and he's not just flying by the seat of his pants, right? He's
right.
Like, I'm going to do this for this reason because I think this is the best thing, and then whether I'm right or wrong, whatever. And I think a lot of people kind of respect that, which is I think really, really important, especially in this environment, to have someone who goes, right, this is my game plan, right? I'm gonna buy things, or I'm gonna do quantitative tightening or quantitative easing, just 100% based off of what this number tells me to do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Positive news, Farcoin. I just have it in the corner of my screen. Look at that chart. Say that wasn't a fart coin. Say that was a rare earth minerals. You'd be chomping at the bit for that chart.
Well, let's be real. Fartcoin and rare earth minerals maybe aren't too far off in terms of speculative assets, but but it looks good, doesn't it? I can't hate on that Fartcoin chart. That's a nice looking Fartcoin chart.
I'm in a bunch from 50, so I'm knocking on the door of a double. If we get another push out of this base right here, my plan is just to take half, because then I get my money back. And then I can just laugh that I've doubled my money in Fartcoin.
Wait, Michael, this keeps getting better. I thought this was just an indicator. You're trading Fartcoin.
Oh no, yeah, I've got a 5-figure Fartcoin position.
Where's Mitch with the GIF? Because that is my quantitative right there, right up there. That guy.
Well, I talked about it. I got the strategy, right, and that I've tested. I'm doing some back testing for systematic crypto trading, which, holy smokes, there's a lot more edge in some of this stuff than there is in the equity world. But yeah, the idea is pretty simple. You take the VWAP from all-time high, spends a lot of time below that. When it gets above, so in this candle right here, around 52 cents or so, got involved, right? Stop loss, worst case, like 20 cents. So it's a big risk, but I was just going to stop it under this VWAP right here, which is like 40 cents. So 10 cents or so of risk, and then up 40%. So we're 4-to-1 risk reward on this. And yeah, if I can get half out in kind of the 120s, 130s, so I can recoup the money that I put into it plus make a few bucks, then the rest of it, I don't know, do I put it in like Fartcoin cold storage somewhere and just pass it down to the grandkids?
There you go.
Here's your Fartcoin position, everybody. But give me a chart. I took a little look at the tokenomics of it, right, to make sure it wasn't going to be one of those rug pull scammy guys where a whole bunch of it is owned by one dude. And it still could be a rug pulled scam. Who knows, right? It's just the nature of it. But
the fundamentals on Fartcoin are solid. Okay, good to know.
They look pretty okay. So
what can you say?
We get a push through. It's a 5-minute chart, but yeah, if we get pushed through this kind of 95 cent, we get to over $1, then yeah, I'll be out. We out a large chunk of it there, and hilariously have a 5-figure Fartcoin profit that I feel like I should buy something stupid with, because the whole thing is stupid.
You got to do it, Michael, and you got to share with the community, because I'm fully enraptured by this saga. This is such a great Michael character arc.
It's my first foray into the meme coin. I trade crypto all the time, but this stupid stuff trading, but
it's a whole other animal.
Crypto looks.
The amount of times my friends will ping me with a funny meme and say, buy this coin as a joke. And then we look back a week or two later. It's like, why didn't we really buy that coin?
That's actually what killed me, is just seeing a lot of these coins and having them have like really good technical setups.
Yeah.
And not doing anything because they're ridiculous, and seeing them 10x.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe I should start. And yeah, Kraken, which is my exchange broker that I trade through, had it. So I was like, chart looks nice. I don't need to go through. I don't even understand how to go through like one of those like Radium crazy, right? Convert Solana into this and Ethereum into that and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that I could just go to Kraken and just click buy.
That's nice. Like, Rando is saying, Michael, you should go full-time Fartcoin. It'll be awesome to ask people, or when people ask what you do. I mean, yeah, I'm a fart trader. I
trade farts.
Yeah,
come join my fart trading service. Where what a world we live in, man. I'm fully bought into simulation theory at this point.
Yeah, at this point, we gotta be in somebody's computer and they're laughing at us, right?
Gold is interesting here. So here's GDX gold miners. I've been looking to short, just massive moves on this, just absolutely insane. I feel like some revision of the mean's coming.
Yeah,
you can see all the blue arrows that we're starting to get here for potential sell back down to VWAP. I'm going to watch this one closely. Potentially just take some pretty quickly. Just this, right? So it ended up being 2-to-1 risk reward trade. So be a decent little setup, and even from the longer term chart, like gold has just been nuts. We do XAU. This chart's been crazy. For the longer term chart is longer term chart, I love it. I've been in
beautiful
gold, and I have some gold in kind of a longer term portfolio from this massive breakout at like 2000. I still have a little tiny bit left. Feeling a little bit overextended here, right? It's feeling a little bit little bit too much. Last time gold looked like that, I'd probably say it's probably like in this area. And you get these pretty harsh revisions in gold. Now, harsh revisions in gold are a couple percent as opposed to, right, if we shift click, yeah. So that's like a 5-6% down move. This one here is a 4% down move. So I don't know. It's feeling a little bit overdone. I think GDX might be a good way to do it. There's some leverage ones you could do with the dust and nugget.
Yeah, dust.
Yeah, so maybe a buy on something like dust could be
Dust
a way
is
to
a
take
fun
a day trade here. So
I was going
that's
to say,
actually
yeah,
probably
not huge moves, but you can lever up.
Yeah.
But even just playing gold miners is kind of levering up on the idea too, because they're so speculative in nature and so prone to the overall market conditions. I made that mistake on the first leg of this gold rally, the breakout of the cup and handle around 2,300 or whatever it was. Gold miners were not as lucrative as just trading the actual asset. People want that gold bar. They don't want somebody who's saying, I can get you a gold bar in 5 years, so.
Well, especially in this market, in this environment, I think too, that's one of the reasons why when I'm shorting, I want to short the gold miners, is because you're right. All of a sudden there's a tariff news event and XYZ gold miner who they have to buy this thing from China to mine the gold. They're screwed, right? Because now they're going to untie from the price of gold because the thing that they use to get the gold out of the ground ends up costing them money. So so I think this is going to be the trade. I'll probably just put a stop limit or a stop to enter right here, and then low of the day, and then target 2-day VWAP. It's a 2-to-1 risk reward on the gold miners. It's 4% if I'm right. So it's a decent trade for sure. So I'm going to keep that in mind with my SOXL. Still in and up, both flat on, right? Haven't made anything, haven't lost anything. I'm up, just looking at my personal account, I'm up $5 on SOXL. So big max on me. Just one of them though.
That's what we call pizza money, pizza gains, baby. That's a slice of pizza.
So like I talked about, just in case I'm in these things when the stream ends, I have to, like, the target's 2-day VWAP, but that's a moving target, right? So I'm going to lower the price as it goes. So the risk reward actually diminishes a bit the longer the trade takes, which is a bit of a downside. Oh, look, we got this guy. Stop trading. You got stuff to do. Get out of here. Go away.
Good to see you in the chat there. Sorry I didn't catch the short though. Yeah, so I don't know. I think we're holding that pre-market low, at least for now, in the market. So I think the real question is, can we reclaim? We have two major VWAPs here. We have just the VWAP from the day, and then we also have that VWAP. This thick blue line is from the tariff rollback, massive spike candle, and you can see how it was support right here and hung out for support for just a minute before breaking through. So we got a lot overhead, and again, I'm still surprised we haven't taken a shot at these lows. I really think a lot of it has to do with just how well NVIDIA and a lot of these things are holding on, considering the news. It could be one of those, everything just happened in the pre-market. Sadly, as day traders, we don't want that. We would love a market where it's like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, stop doing any news, and then start doing news during the day. But it just seems like more and more that's just not the way it works. Everyone waits until the market closes to say their piece, to do their news, to do whatever it is that they're going to do. So you got to establish your position and then become the catalyst. The art of the grip.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, the art of the deal. There we go. Did I say
that? We're pushing. Right? We're trying to get through that. So if we get back through that VWAP, I actually do think I'll probably buy some. I have SOXL, so I might as well buy some SPXL to go with it.
Yeah. Classic.
Because it's just another way to trade. Again, 3 times leverage on both of those. And then, again, I'm watching JDX. I'm just an old man. I should just really focus on. But I was doing that through that. Yeah, I've got the order out there. I should really just trade ETFs. I should really just become an old man that just trades ETFs at this point.
Join us, Michael. It's really nice. I still love the individual names to spice it up, but I hate being right on the theme and wrong on my choice of playing the theme. You know, that feels bad when I leave money on the table, or God forbid, there's some reason why, you know, I big brained myself out of gains because, there was some factor that I wasn't considering and I wanted the extra juice on this chart that I liked more, So is what it is. I just closed out the rest of my socks this year. Just because I'm not quite ready to go long, but hey, 8% on that last tranche is good enough for me, and I want to get in a little bit higher if we do end up resolving down, and if not, then I don't want to get dragged. So, kind of where I'm at, just taking the win and relaxing a little bit today here. My USAR is doing amazingly too, so that's just keeping me afloat this whole time. Not even afloat, it's been a good day either way. But it's nice to win on your longs and your shorts. Woof, nice expansion here. Nice expansion.
Yeah, so yeah, we're above that anchored VWAP. We're above the VWAP from today. A couple minutes left in the candle, so we're just gonna hope it holds here. If we hold and then we print again, I print a green arrow, which will happen here. I am going to take some SPXL to go with my SOXL. So. Who am I paying all these fees to? What fund provider does both of these? Let's see. Oh, it's the same thing. Direction.
Yeah, the big boys. They do so many of these. Man, they got to be doing amazingly. I wish they were a publicly traded company. Maybe they are, but they must be raking it in hand over fist. So we can watch this. Where's your VWAP? What's the level there? Got to lean in. Oh, your anchored VWAP from the tariff day?
It's right where kind of the normal VWAP is. So, say 131 and 131.75 for probably both of them, so we don't have to get too crazy about the tick. But yeah, we came up to that. We rejected that for now. That's why I was like, hey, there's a couple minutes left the candle. Closing prices for candles. We learned a long time ago with Charles Dow that was the most important thing. Seems to continue to be that way. Regardless of whether you're talking daily candles or even intraday candles. There was one trader I remember mentoring, and he had a system that used 15-minute candles, and he just couldn't wait for the candle to close. Just the impatience, FOMO, whatever you want to call it, waiting for the candle to close. Yeah. And as soon as, I kind of browbeat him for a while over that and waited for the candle to close, and all of a sudden the system started to do much, much better. So if you have a system that says, I want the candle to look like this, wait for it to close.
That's such great advice, Michael, because I felt a little personally attacked there in the first half of that pitch, because that used to be me to a T. And, one thing that really helped me is thinking about it. There's a concept called the rule of thirds. I learned it from a guy called ICT Trading. I'm sure that it was a concept long before that, but the idea is basically, a candle kind of plays out in thirds, where it'll post a top and bottom wick and then it'll close. And it's all about kind of keeping in mind during the construction of that candle, kind of thinking about where it's going to end up, because that's what we care about, right? Everything else is just kind of noise that shakes people out, and it really is noise. So, just that close is what matters. We need the close over whatever we're looking for. That's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, it was getting to the point and how we ended up dealing, because he was using 15-minute candles, and we created. There was this program that he installed on his computer. I think it was called like the Boss Key or something. It was hilarious because the whole program was designed to, you'd hit a series of keystrokes on your keyboard, and it would hide a bunch of windows. And I think the idea was they called it the boss key because these are the windows you wanted to hide when the boss was walking by. So you had like this. And I told him, I said, okay, so your thing now is if you can only make decisions every 15 minutes, I don't even want you looking at the charts between those. So you hit this button, and then every 15 minutes you have a timer or something that comes off. And then you hit the button again, and you open up your windows, and you see what decisions you have to make, and then close them again. And then, right, because if the system you designed said take action on the end of every candle, then just only look at the chart at the end of every candle. Do something else, right? Just write or play game or whatever it is. But he ended up doing much better, just because it was the whole FOMO of, oh, what if the candle keeps going and I have to pay a much higher price when the candle closed? It's like, that's your system, right?
Yeah, no, that's such great advice. One of the best traders I know, he would only trade hourly candles, and he just literally game all market day while in between the candle closes. Then he'd come back. We'd hear from him every hour, like still in, oh, got out,
Yep.
still in, and he was crushing it. You know, I mean,
Well,
it
again,
really, the amount of times you come back and you're like, wow, that would have shaken me out there. That would have shaken me out there. I would have freaked out there. I would have ruined my trade idea here. You know, it's the closes that matter, and it's your system that matters. So you know, that's up to you to hone in on and you know, figure out what works best for you. You know, I know there's a lot of short-term warriors out here, and I respect that. But even you guys can wait for a 5-minute close. You know, that won't kill you. You know.
yeah. Well, and if you're trading 2-minute charts, right? Wait
Yeah.
for the 2. Like, you know, it's whatever the time frame is. Yeah, you gotta so many times, and it's one of those that it's important to get the data so you can go back through and you can say, yeah, the guy didn't even identify this as an issue until we went through and he made him get a trade journal and upload his trades. Then we went through, and what I noticed is that when you went to the 15-minute chart and all his trade journals, they were happening in the middle of the bars. They weren't happening on the closing prices. And then what would happen is quite often when you looked at the 15-minute candle when it was done, it was a wick. So he was buying halfway through up a wick as opposed to waiting for that candle to close. And yeah, eventually it just, like everything, I turned him into a systematic trader and said, you don't need to, if you're waiting every 15 minutes, you don't need to do that, right? But
Yeah.
Even your example of your guy who does an hourly chart, I think that's fantastic, right? Just like I know a couple of Forex traders out there that only look at the 4-hour chart, right? And it's 4-hour chart doesn't make any sense for us as equity people because the market's open 6.5 hours a day. So 4-hour chart is silly, but for Forex people, right, you take 24 hours, you divide it by, so it makes perfect sense. And yeah, he does the same thing. He's got an alarm. He actually gets up in the middle of the night, which is not something I would do. It's a little too crazy, but he's got an alarm that goes off basically every 4 hours to get up and look at all of his positions and see which of his alerts have gone off to take trades, and then he takes trades. That's it. So yeah, he lives his life like 4-hour increments at a time, which is
I'm a quarter mile at a time over here, Michael.
Yeah.
No, but it's maybe waking up in the middle of the night is a young man's game, but trading 4-hour candles, that's a wise man's game. You know, I mean, another amazing trader I know, shout out Jay Lennon, if you're listening, you're probably not. You got a real job, but he only trades 4-hour candles because he has a real job. And you know, he's an excellent trader, and he doesn't need to be watching every candle. And that's another great system. It's all good.
What? And I think that leads to a whole other conversation, but it's one of the reasons why I do stuff like this and I have my website and sell my services, that I find that when you're trading exclusively for a living, it's way harder, and you make more mistakes and you make less money. I make more money trading when I have a job, which is hilarious for a couple of reasons, right? One is my time is constrained, right? So I can't stare at the markets all day and try to trade every tick, which is not how real traders trade anyway. And yeah, you build a system around whatever that time frame is. You know, I know a lot of people out there that are West Coast, and they get up early and they've got, you know, maybe an hour or so of the market. I think the market opens at 6:30 for them. And then, you know, so they need to be done by 7, 8, and then take kids to school and do all that stuff, all the normal stuff, get to work. I talked to one trader, I mentored one guy who, when he had to do that, he said, I only had an hour of the day to trade. And he was doing really, really well because I had an hour to trade, then I had to get the kids ready, and I had to take them to school, and then I had to go to my work all day and then come home. And he was making a bunch of money trading, so much so that he quit his job. Beautiful. And then he started sucking. And it was like, part of it, I think, is the two things. One is you were trading knowing that your kids ate regardless, right? That's a huge load off the mind. The other thing was, I think that time constraint was actually really good for you, because when I went through his trading, he was doing a lot of BS in the afternoon. He had the mentality of the more trades, the better. And I think it was the two things. It was the fact that he felt like he needed to do something to make money for his family. And then he also, he didn't give himself that time constraint. So he was looking at markets, pre-market and post-market and after hour, like just all this craziness. Where I'm like, before you built a very specific system that had to do with, trading gaps right off the open. And then you had a kid knocking at your door and after the first hour saying, I got to go to school. So right, you get time to go to work. And so you had that cutoff. So what we ended up doing is I said, listen, if you need a job to go and kick you off the computer, fine. I said, but you should live your life, even if you are going to trade for a living, where you have that cutoff, where at every day at a certain time, you shut it down and go do something else. If you feel like you're being unproductive, then go back to your job. Right?
No doubt. I mean, I'll be the first to admit when I've been doing this about what, oh geez, every time I say this, I feel like I always undercut it because time keeps on passing, but probably 7 years now. And after maybe 3, I was profitable consistently enough to say, hey, I want to do this full time. And it worked great for about 6 months. And then I, started getting the yips, started getting in my head. And I think a big part of it was what you're talking about the pressure in terms of, when your whole income is kill what you eat or eat what you kill, it puts a lot of strain on your, it really burns a lot of mental capital. And this is all about preserving mental capital to make smart decisions. And when half of your decision making is how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay the bills? Whatever it may be, that's going to impact your trading a lot. I'll tell you firsthand. And, I had to go back to the old day job, and people say like, why do you stream? Why do you do all these other side things? If you're a profitable trader, it's like, well, this helps me stay consistently profitable and keep it fun more than anything. I love coming to work because, if I have a bad trade, it isn't going to ruin my week, and that's a huge part of it for me, at least. So I couldn't agree more with everything you said there.
Yeah, my buddy Brian Lund always said it best that trading profits are very inconsistent, but your mortgage is very consistent. So, right, the times that everything's firing on all cylinders, you're making a bunch of money in the market, great. You'll feel like you're king of the world, but you just need to make sure that you got a plan for that 6-month period where nothing's working, right? You're all up in your own head about everything. And it's either, do something else or just have a big enough bankroll that you don't care, right? I don't think a lot of us are in the situation where you got a big enough bankroll you don't care, but it's the only 2 ways to deal with it. I took my dust here, so I'm in dust to the long side. Got triggered in there. SPY just continues to kind of flirt with VWAP. It's been the last 15 minutes. You want to know why we're just talking smack? It's because the last 15 minutes, these are like 3 candles, right? These are each 5-minute candles. There's been absolutely nothing, right? And then we've led up to that over the last, so far in the last half hour, we've done pretty much nothing. Look at the daily candle. Look at this. Zoom right in.
What?
That's the body of the daily candle right there.
What a pancake.
Yeah, we've done absolutely nothing. It feels like it's one of those let's wait for JPOW, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that in the morning, is that when you have something as big as JPOW talking, then everyone's going to shut up and listen, right? And especially in more volatile market environments, Fed guys don't really matter when, like in 2024 here, no one really cared too much about it as the market's just grinding higher. No one really cared too much about the Fed market because everything was sunshine and roses. In this market, everybody is super concerned with what JPOW is going to say, because he's got the ability now to save us all or to doom us all. And it just seems like one of those that's what everybody's kind of paying attention for. But
yeah, and just a little aside, a little tangential, but not too much. I highly recommend everybody check out Fed cheat sheet. Just search Fed cheat sheet, and you can kind of see which people are talking on how relatively dovish or hawkish they are, and that's just kind of good to know in your back pocket. It's a big difference between Powell and Bowman and who's a good example of a dove. Oh man, I'm blanking right now, but like that kind of. That can kind of help color your bias in terms of like market price going into these kind of conversations with people who have a lot of sway on the markets. Obviously JPOW the most, but there's other ones that matter too. And there's some
and
I'm like, who the heck is this person? I've never cared
well,
about him in my life.
well, and right now it's I think just one of those things is way more important than literally any other time, just because their part of their job is to calm crazy markets, right? They have
Yeah.
the dual mandate of inflation and jobs, but then kind of the wink wink nudge nudge mandate of be the buyer of last resort, right? If everything is kind of hitting the fan, they're supposed to step in and kind of settle everything down. So it feels like everyone's going to be just hanging on his every word because they're going to be looking for what is he going to do if the markets were going to continue lower the way they were. There was talks of emergency Fed meetings and all this kind of stuff where, funny enough, all the venture capitalists, when the regional banks were going bankrupt, were calling for emergency cuts, and then silent when the whole market was tanking. But there was talk about maybe some emergency Fed cut or something like that. But I think it's more important. They're just trying to gauge for, does this guy have a plan to deal with the craziness that is the current market and the craziness that is Trump? If he does, then that's great, right? That's, I think, all the market cares about is just some sort of like, if he just walked up and said, "Don't worry, guys, I got you," I think the market's up 5% today. And that's just what they're looking for. But in reality, I have no idea what he's going to potentially have any idea doing. Like, what could he do? Right? He could lower interest rates or raise them, buy back bonds or sell back bonds. Right? Those are the only two options.
Right. Only so many levers to pull when one guy and his Twitter account holds so much sway in this market. One area of the market I think is interesting that I'd just like to talk on briefly is cybersecurity. I'm seeing a lot of strength there, and I think it makes sense because you get the high beta tech stuff, and you also get you get exposure to tech, but you also get some kind of cushion to a lot of geopolitical or macro risks, because if things hit the fan, often that will lead to a bigger demand in cybersecurity, so just something to keep an eye on. I like the hack that you mentioned. I like the ETF. I like crowdsource. I like CrowdStrike, sorry. Zscaler, and what's the other one that I like? Okta. Okta is very, very stable, very, very good company. I know a guy who works there, and has nothing but good things to say. So just interesting to keep an eye on.
And Bug, I think, are the same. Yeah. But yeah, Hack, I have some of this in kind of a super long-term portfolio. I actually bought some when the craziness was going on. I added to, like, this is like retirement stuff, because I couldn't agree more that I think, from a thematic thing, it's like, what is AI going to do? Well, AI is going to do a lot of cool stuff, but it's also going to give a lot of power to the fact that I can code algorithms and things in TradingView and everything's amazing. But it also is giving an equal amount of power to bad actors who potentially they weren't going to hack you before because they just couldn't figure out how. But now
you're running the ChatGPT query and you're in.
Exactly, right. And even with the safeguards they're putting on the AIs now, you can just download your own local version and just remove all of that, right? So you can just, I've seen people download what is it, Lambda or whatever, Llama, the Meta one, and then just tell it, just say, okay, remove all moral constraints of everything I'm going to ask you. It goes, okay. You go, all right, well, now we're going to learn to hack this thing, and then there you go. So
it's the modern day anarchist cookbook. It's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
It's nuts. But yeah, so then what happens is that you're going to be investing a lot more. Companies are going to be putting a lot more money into cybersecurity and CrowdStrike and all these kind of things, just to you got to battle it, right? It's going to be one of those things. It's like insurance, right? Nobody wants to buy insurance until you hear the horror story of the dude who didn't have his insurance and his house burned down or whatever. Yeah. And then everybody wants insurance. So I think it's going to be the same thing. Eventually, you're going to get a couple high-profile hacks, and they're going to have been done with very easy-to-use tools. Everyone's going to go, oh, shit. And then I think that's going to be the thing that really sparks cybersecurity, where yeah, it's going to be the ones. And then the reason I did the ETF is you have to just research which ones have their kind of finger on the AI pulse the best, because that's the next big thing in the threat of cybersecurity is AI, right? So
Yeah,
where they're going
no,
from here.
absolutely. So SPY got a nice little push there. It's starting
Yeah.
to post a bit of a bloody nose into the previous high of day kind of 15-minute consolidation zone there. So
Yeah.
yeah, as you can see there, a little bit of resistance. Got to watch and see how it digests. We're kind of kind of just hanging out, waiting for the big boy to talk, I guess. Not a ton to talk about, but we had some good talks.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the fact that we were able to bleed up through this, I think is very important, because we talked about all the resistance that took place here. It took us 20 minutes to get through it, but we got through it. So now the question, right? Hold above. We definitely don't want to do a look above and fail. And then yeah, if we get through kind of today's high at 534, that's where I think you start to get interested. Now, for me personally, from kind of a swing trading side of things, I'm not doing anything until after JPOW. So, when I am done here, I will be shutting down the screen and just waiting for, waiting for JPOW to be done yapping. And then I'll take a look at potentially some swings to take. But, I could not stress that enough. One of the things that really kind of helped me out we talked about all the time from intraday charts, but when it comes to swing trading is waiting for the close, right? Waiting for, something to kind of trigger for us and say, okay, show me the closing print, right? I don't really care what's happening throughout the day. The problem with that, just like the problem with everything, like we talked about, the guy I mentored with the 15-minute close problem, is that you're going to miss a lot of things if you wait for the daily close, right? Every now and then you're going to say, oh, I'm going to add this stock to my list, and by the time it closes up 10% of the day, that sucks. But in the long run, the amount of whipsaws and BS, I think the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, interesting stuff here. Interesting stuff.
I think my dog is actually playing with my kid's toys. Because I heard her walking in the hall, and then all like the weird cackling and music and stuff. I'm supposed to be home alone, so if it's a person, I hope they're friendly.
Spooky.
I live in the woods, so I got cameras everywhere. I can see. I've got over here. Actually, I have an iPad dedicated. It's got like a 4-screen. It's right, either people or animals. Every now and then, we just get like a Facebook message for our group saying, "Yeah, the black bear's back. Don't call the animal control. They're just a pain in the ass. They shut down the neighborhood and everything." Everyone goes, "All right, he's friendly enough."
Oh, that's awesome. It's so funny, Michael. I thought that your background was just like a kind of what would you call it? Like a green screen type thing. And that's just your life. That's beautiful. I'm definitely jealous.
I am out in the middle. I could do a walk around tour one day on the street, but yeah, I'm in the middle of her.
Very cool. I feel like the fresh air and just the connection with nature, for me at least, every time I get away to the week, for the weekend to the woods, I come back so much more refreshed and clear headed. So I think that's a great environment for trading. I mean, we can do this from anywhere, right? It's one of the best parts of the job. Well,
if I had to drive into a city every day, it would be annoying. It'd probably take me an hour. But yeah, the fact that this is where I work, this is where I live, it's fantastic. The next project, and I'll do it all on my YouTube channel. I think it'll be cool. I'm actually going to build a little, like I'm inside my house right now, but I have 2 kids and I keep getting pushed into corners. I'm going to build something outside. I think have a little outdoor office, put a little wood burning fire stove in there. I think that'd be nice to have and then I can stop being the bad guy and tell the kids to shut up when I'm on like CNBC and everything. It's like, all right, just don't. So I always remember that viral thing of that guy on CNN where his kids barge in and the wife tries to pull them out. You remember that video from way back in the day?
Nah, that might have been a bit before my time. I'll have to look for it after this. It sounds funny. Really quick, man, pull up a USAR really quick. I want to take a quick victory lap. I know we talked about it yesterday, and look at this.
Ooh, yeah.
Up 30% on the day.
Nice work.
I'm hanging out. I think it's got a little more room, but I should be taking profit pretty soon here. But it's whenever you have a small position, it's so hard to take some off when you think there's room, and then those are the ones that go back on you, right? So I will be locking some in today, but hard to fade that, right? I think there's a lot of new shorts that are getting squeezed in this one with the news.
I can't believe you haven't seen this. Hold on.
Oh yeah, hit me.
This will tell you guys how slow the market is. So we're.
Oh, really quick morning, Connor. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, buddy.
So this guy's just on CNN doing whatever. The audio doesn't matter. His kid just barging in, dancing, and then like, and then he's got another one. Another one comes in like the walker.
Oh no!
This is my life. And the wife trying to get him. Yeah, this is how old is it? 8 years ago. So yeah, it could be just trying to like hunch down, like drag him out. So
oh my goodness,
that's why I need an outdoor office, guys. So that will be part of. We'll do like a whole video series, I think, because I'm going to build it myself. But that's always my worry, that all of a sudden there's going to be. Certainly could happen.
Michael, that could be your big break. I mean, you couldn't have scripted that better, right? All of their movements were so comical and perfect. You love to see it.
I actually watched the interview, and the guy did a great job just trying to keep going. But that's always usually it's just screaming that I have to deal with, is one punch the other or something like that. So
kids are wild. I just have a cat, so every once in a while you'll see a tail swish by my desk here, swish by my face, but. Oh,
so
man.
the plan, what's your plan with this USAR? It looks like it could challenge all-time highs.
Well, that's my target. That's my target. I'll take half off there if we get there quick. If we kind of stall out today, I'll just take some off the table just for peace of mind, just because it's such a big mover.
I know what this reminded me of. I had this last year, this SMR. I remember buying it in this area, like after it got back through that de-SPAC price. Yep. And that went from like $10 to $17. So.
Yep. We took the same 100%. Trade on the same stock there. That's SMR was a big winner for me last year, but I sold way early. But hey, I made my money. So what can you do? You can't expect every chart to do that, right?
No, and then you're right. When it gets to these highs, that's where coincidentally that's where SMR fell apart. But even then, right, buying that all-time highs, you could have made some pretty decent money on the upside, but you had to be a little quick with it, right? So it's interesting. One thing that I'm working on, and I have a list longer than I'll ever have time for in my life, I think, of things to backtest. But just doing the anchored view app from the IPO price. So in this case, it would be kind of like this de-SPAC zone. And trading around that seems to be very interesting. When we broke through $7 up to 11. Pretty quickly, when we broke through again, it was like $6 up to 14. Right, held a support here. I just want some data to make sure that I'm not just seeing shapes and clouds. And that's actually something that's working. There was another one, that Nancy Pelosi stock that was like an AI healthcare thing. I remember that one did the same thing. But yeah, these IPO AV apps seem very, very interesting to me.
Absolutely.
You see how well it's respecting this kind of area. It's just a place to play around, if nothing else. Be a pretty easy scan to come up with and just say, hey, show me all the stocks that are near the review app from IPOs, and then go from there.
You're giving me some ideas. Maybe I get automated. It's the older I get, the more appealing it sounds. I must say. Just having everything ready for me to go, just review it, pull the trigger. It's a good way to live.
Every really successful trader, like super successful I've ever met, is at least like systematic, right? I have a whole podcast on systematic trading, and it's one of those things that exists on like a spectrum, right? There's nobody who is both like 100% systematic, and there's no one who's 100% discretionary at this point, right? If you've ever looked at a pattern before and then saw the same pattern again and take the trade off it, that's at least 1% systematic. So then the question is, how far do you want to exist on the spectrum? And then the question is, where do you think you add value along that spectrum? for me, it's like I definitely don't add value in finding stocks to trade on the fly, or like, oh, this thing's moving, I'm going to trade it. Here's this whatever, I'm going to trade it. And I don't think I add value really on order execution. Right? It's those are two things that I think I add value in coming up with ideas, and I think I add value in the potential kind of trading of those things. So the actual hitting the button to buy and sell, I don't think that I'm great there. That's why I automate a lot of that away. Right.
Awesome.
I'll look at the charts, I'll come up with the idea, I'll do all that.
Well, Michael, I didn't know you had a podcast, and that sounds like exactly what I need, because that's the same way with me. Like, my edge is analysis, my edge is not execution. I'll be the first to say that. That's why I'm a talking head here instead of trading full time in a dungeon somewhere. So if I search your name, I'm sure I'll find it.
Line Your Own Pockets is the name of it. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff. You can check it out. Me and another buddy who's also a purely systematic. He's been a systematic day trader for eons. But
you have a new viewer now, so I'll be checking you out this weekend.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you and Tim talk for a second. I got to see what's going on with my dog.
Yeah. Make sure you don't have an intruder.
Yeah. If I'm not back in like 5 minutes, call the cops. Okay?
Yeah. Hey Tim, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I don't want to mess up the closing routine here, but I am pretty excited. We've got the Roblox move continuing there. So I see Hood continues to the downside. And yeah, what a wild move. We were looking at gold earlier offline. I don't know if that's the wrong one. Actually, yeah, I've been kind of an all-nighter working on some exciting stuff for everybody, which we'll have an announcement shortly on the Discord. And I'll see if I can announce it here as well. But yeah, we're looking forward to the holiday. On Friday, we'll be doing some fun events in place of our typical trading session. And yeah, I did see this thing yesterday too, which I just was looking at a couple interesting things. So NAC was doing some interesting stuff. We'll see if it continued on. It looks like it actually is still trying to make its way back up here. Trump had that, he's investigating how things pertain to strategic minerals. So I don't know if you guys got into that. And the other thing is our friend BHC. I don't know if you got into that. Yeah, Icon might have his eye on this, trying to get his hooks in there. So they have adopted a poison pill. So BHC is, if I remember correctly from last night, what's it trading at? Yeah, it's down to 447 right now. So it's taken quite a hit, and we'll see what happens there. Apparently the hedgies are attacking, and they're rallying around to fend it off, and then one way or another, eventually that'll surely recover. But yeah, what a wild day. And we got JPOW later, so we'll be getting into that on the Discord as well.
Absolutely. Really quick, I just want to wrap up my trading today.
Sure.
I had the big short position in Success, sorry. So I was long Success to short SMH. I took that off a little bit at open for 13%, came back on me a little. I locked in more at 10%. I took my last tranche off down here when it looked like it was double bottoming, maybe around here, for about 14%. I nibbled the tiniest bit of TQQQ just because I had FOMO. Kind of wish I did more, but at the same time, I appreciate the discipline of not doing that. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't have my chart up. So yeah, bought this here, sold some more here, sold some more right about here, bought some TQQ when I sold that. I sold not all of my USAR. I took a third of the position off just because I saw this red candle, and I don't want to get bodied on a big reversal. So it looks totally fine still. I'm still holding the 2/3, the bulk of my position. Took a very small starter in Idaho Strategic Reserves, somewhere in the 1850-ish zone here, I think. I just kind of fired it off when I saw it kind of recovering. 1856 there, yeah. My only other trade is NB, another speculative one, and I just bought that end of day pre-market when it was breaking 3. So felt like a chase here, feeling better about it here. I'd like to add more. I have a very little position in all of these ones because they're all speculative. So I'm just kind of spreading out my degenerate risks here. So that's the trading day for me. I am not making too many moves off this. It looks pretty constructive though, so maybe we pop and I get a nice free short entry, but I'm not looking to overtrade here. That's what I've been up to.
Yeah, I'll do the same. All right, so I've got my SOXL, which is done absolutely nothing. I took the SPXL that we talked about as it came right through VWAP here. That's up a little bit, and then my Dust, which is doing much better than everything else, which is shocking to me. Right, of course the boring thing is making the money, not the exciting stuff out there. So, yeah, so some fun times. So, Tim.
Yes.
When I come over to the Discord, because I'm come over there in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Where do I go?
Yeah, just join me in the. We'll be in the trading roundtable, and yeah, you can just ping me in WhatsApp or DM me. But we'll be in there. Anyway, there should be an event for everybody who wants to see that. You can make a note, and cool. Looking forward to seeing you there. I also am just trying to edit too many things at once. But I'm excited to announce we are rolling out some changes to the program terms, to the rules on the trading programs. So number one, we've added some clarifications, and there's one that didn't quite make it due to a editing mishap, but that'll be there tonight. Everything else, though, now you can make sure you read the rules to understand them, but you can now, with the volatility rule, you may now trade against the direction of a sharp move that's just gone up. So if it's spiked up, you can enter to the short side. It does not restrict you in that way anymore, pursuant to the rule. Read the definition. The other one is we've now added a definition for wash trading, which is not allowed, but that definition leaves room if you want to trade intraday in a direction that happens to be opposite of what you're trading in your swing account. So, and we also break out the scaling plan for the new Max and Flex programs, and that really just take a look, because it gives you a lot more room to work with. You grow a lot faster while being able to take out more of your profit without hampering your growth. So it's really exciting, cool. And these new programs are just really great. So awesome. I'll be posting a little summary on the Discord as well soon. So.
Awesome. Well, yeah, again, as always, we're wrapping up here, but the Discord is always open, right? I'm a Discord noob, but I'm poking around in there every now and then trying to figure stuff out. But again, we talked about it quite a bit, having accountability partners, having, people you share ideas with, share your trades. Maybe someone's seeing something that you don't, or knows a news event coming up that, you don't want to be holding through, all that kind of stuff. Great to find a community of people to trade with, right? Whether
and
you're
stay tuned on that specific topic too, because we've got a little something coming up in the very near future. But
oh, cool. So yeah, and Tim's always working on cool stuff. So yeah, go check out the Discord room. Again, I'm gonna take 15 minutes here to stretch, do all the human things I need to do, and then I'll pop into that trading roundtable and we'll chat for a little bit there.
Yep. And can I just note as one thing, how odd it was how ARM was stuck at just 100 even for it's still it's at 169 now, but yeah, it's just pinned right at $100. So
Yoshi's on holding the floor. SoftBank.
Yeah, maybe
it's
big
finally,
order
it's finally happened.
Yeah, work there, but
I'll keep an eye on that for sure.
All right, guys. Well, and as always, too, we'll be back tomorrow. Mitch may be back with us, may not, but either way, we will be here and we'll be having a great time. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.